Hello, I'm Sheryl McCarthy of the City University of New York. Welcome to One to One. Each week we address issues of timely and timeless concern with newsmakers and the journalists who report on them, with artists, writers, scientists, educators, social scientists, government leaders. We speak with each one to one. The Police Athletic League of New York has been serving the city's young people since 1914. Contrary to its name, it's not run by the police department, but works hand in hand with the department and with the Department of Education to provide all sorts of activities all year round. I'm delighted to welcome Alana Sweeny, the active executive director of PAL, which is also a perfect description of what the organization provides. Welcome.
Thank you. It's wonderful to be here.
I suspect that when most people think of the Police Athletic League, they think about police officers in their spare time coaching baseball and basketball teams for boys from low-income families. Is that accurate?
Only partially. We do far more than that, but we do, through our Cops and Kids program, have about 800 NYPD who volunteer their time to work with our kids, but it is boys and girls, and it's a number of different athletic activities. But what we do spans far more than that. We serve children from the ages of 2 to 19 in a wide array of activities.
Now, PAL was founded by the then police commissioner back in 1914, and it started with, very simply, the closing off of some city streets in the summertime so the kids could play safely. How has it evolved? How did it evolve from that?
Well, we still do have the play streets, and it's probably one of our signature programs that people think of when they think of the Police Athletic League. And we do close about close to 50 streets in the summer. And we have staff. We actually have curriculum for the play streets in the summer. But with that, as times grew and time moved forward, we became aware that children needed far more than activity just during the summertime. Many parents were going to work. Many parents didn't have the capacity to be able to provide structured, good activities for their children to promote their learning. Many children lived in areas where it was not safe to go out and play, where they couldn't have some of that normal life that you and I probably grew up with, where you could just run out on the street and play. So they started to have after-school programs, they started to have other athletic programs, and we operate those in all 5 of the boroughs. Gradually, we grew to have early childhood programming as well, and juvenile justice programming. We have a whole host of signature and interesting programs that go on.
So who funds it?
We have a number of different funders. The primary part of our funding comes from government. And as you and I both know, this has been very difficult because government funding is drying up. It's becoming more difficult to get. The amounts of the grants are not as high as they were, so we have to supplement with private funding. And one of the things that's difficult with that, as you mentioned the police department earlier on, many people think that we're part of the police department, and we are not. In the beginnings of the Police Athletic League, it was part of the NYPD. But in the 1930s, it became a separate not-for-profit. So we are not funded at all by the police department. They are very supportive of us. We have liaison officers who work with us. As I mentioned, the volunteers from the police department who work with us. So we are very, very thrilled to have that partnership. But we do not want it to affect our funding from private sources. We are a separate not-for-profit.
How many kids do you serve in your various programs each year?
Are you ready? 46,000.
Wow. And they're boys and girls?
Boys and girls in all 5 boroughs.
And is there an age? What's the age range?
2 to 19.
Mm-hmm. Can any kid take part in PAL activities? I mean, is there an income? Is it for poor kids? Is it for all kids? Can anybody take part in it?
The areas where we provide the services are in the poorest areas of the city and the highest crime areas of the city. So by definition, those are going to be the children who are going to come to our programs. We're probably not going to have a child from the Upper East Side come to Bed-Stuy for programming. So those generally, we do not do income with it. For some of the summer programs, there is some income in terms of paying for summer camp.
Right.
Very few people pay for it, and they pay very little. And those who do are usually supplemented by their employers.
So PAL activities are not limited to sports activities, but are athletics the largest portion of your program?
I think it sorts out as being one of them. Probably in numbers between truancy and sports, it's probably the highest. But we do have in each of our centers, and we have 15 or 16 centers throughout the city, we have about 200 children in each one of those centers coming to after-school programs. We have probably an equal number coming to summer programs, not including the play streets. We have teenagers coming to night centers. We have impact centers in the city where we might have 300 kids in a night drop into them. So it goes through a number of different things. We have 875 kids in our early childhood programs. Adorable children, by the way.
Now, when I look at your photographs on your website, I see a lot of black kids, probably a few Latino kids. Have the demographics of the children that you serve changed since 1914? I mean, would I have seen more mostly Irish and Italian kids and maybe Jewish kids then as opposed to now?
Well, absolutely, because what's happened is people in those neighborhoods have gradually assimilated, have moved up in income levels, and have moved to other areas. And I would say you're correct. We do have some Asian children, we do have Caucasian children, but the greatest number of our children are Hispanic and African American. And that's because of the areas that we're serving. And unfortunately, they are the ones who are most affected by poverty.
And are a lot of the Hispanic, Latino kids in particular, are a lot of them children of immigrants?
We have a good number of children who are children of immigrants.
Now you have the PAL centers there. You said there are 15, 16 throughout the 5 boroughs. I guess in the times when I have passed by a center that said PAL Center, I sort of connect them in my mind with the YMCA buildings that I passed through when I was a kid. Are the programs similar at all?
No, we have far more educational. We have a PAL Smart, PAL Fit, and PAL Arts. You'll see if you go into our centers, most of them have a gym, not all of them. Many of them have performing centers where you've got, the ballet bars and the mirrors, and we might have gymnastics, we might have dance, we have different kinds of arts programs where children might be painting or doing paper mache or any of those kinds of things. We have libraries in them, so the children can come and take a book, read a book. We have technology centers in them, and they're very multi-use centers. They're very versatile. We do a number of different things with them.
Tell me first about your sports program. According to your website, you have leagues and tournaments for more than 17,000
That's right.
young people. What kinds of sports are we talking about?
Oh, we have flag football is starting right now. That's a biggie. We have softball throughout the year. We have basketball. We have track and field. We have soccer. We have all kinds of things that the kids can participate in depending on what their interests are.
Now, are the sports are they for boys and girls or primarily for boys?
Boys and girls.
Okay.
It's interesting. We have a fascinating program that we just were piloting recently, and it has been so successful. We're going to continue it on in Harlem, add Friday night to Saturday night, and then hopefully be able to move that throughout the city. And that's a program that we're doing in conjunction with the NYPD, the DA's office, a group called Pro Hoops, which does a very professional training type camp for kids for basketball, and the Police Athletic League, PAL. And what we're doing, the NYPD explained that the highest crime time that they were concerned about was Saturday night from 5 until 9, and they were most concerned about the 13 to 15-year-olds. So we set up this program on Saturday night for 13 to 15-year-olds from 5 until 9 in Harlem. And I don't know if you remember the girl who was just killed, the basketball star from the Grant houses. And they're feuding with one of the other projects. So we went out and we reached out into those projects to try and reach kids from those projects to bring them in. The NYPD went door to door to the homes of chronic truants and knocked and handed a flyer and said, there's this great program starting and it's free. Sign up for it and come in. We then went to the precinct level, and they identified kids who had either a baby toe or a big toe going into the justice system, or who they were just plain a little bit concerned about, even though they may not have been, identified by getting into trouble. Reached out and gave them flyers, and then went out into the broader community for any children who wanted to be able to attend. We anticipated that it would take halfway through the program to get to our capacity. We had a waiting list the first night.
So what do they do on Saturday nights?
They have an amazing training program with the basketball. So they have ADAs who are volunteering, they have NYPD who are volunteering, and they have these people who train. They train in some of the best train people in some of the best private schools in the city.
And these are boys and girls?
Boys and girls.
Okay.
Boys and girls.
But you have a big citywide tournament that's, I think, just for boys. Is that right?
That's right. And
okay.
we have also had girls tournaments as well for basketball.
Okay.
So these kids are really moving and active throughout that whole period of time. There are 2 sessions, and they're learning all the intricate skills to basketball.
And
it's
who
not
coaches
just going
these
and playing.
teams?
This is Pro Hoops.
Okay.
Pro Hoops. It's a private concern, not for profit themselves, who is working with us.
Okay. We're going to take a short break. Then we'll be back with more with Alana Sweeny, the acting executive director of the Police Athletic League of New York City.
Hi, I'm Matthew Goldstein. November is CUNY month, and a great time to visit CUNY campuses in all 5 boroughs. Learn why more CUNY students than ever are winning national awards and scholarships. Our 24 colleges and professional schools are holding open houses for you. Meet world-class faculty. Ask about financial aid. The time to start working on your future is now. Visit cuny.edu/CUNY month.
I'm lucky. Let me help you with that. I get to do something I love. It has nothing to do with touchdowns or titles.
Everybody bring it in.
I get to play a part in the life of someone just starting out.
How many of you think homework is just as important as teamwork?
I help keep kids in school,
Good.
and that's the name of the game.
My name is LaDainian Tomlinson. I don't just wear the shirt, I live it.
Give, advocate, volunteer. Live United.
Welcome back to One to One. I'm Sheryl McCarthy of the City University of New York, and I'm talking with Alana Sweeny, the acting executive director of PAL. We've talked about, the athletic programs. Tell me about some of your non-sports programs.
We have a number of programs. First of all, we've got a great new program that's starting, trying to provide violin to some of our children out in Bedford-Stuyvesant. And we were able to buy violins so that the children can have individual and group lessons. We brought Daisy Jopling, she plays for audiences of 30,000 in other countries, and she came out and played for our kids. Now, if you can imagine a room full of inner city children jumping up and down and clapping for Vivaldi, it was a wonderful thing to experience. But we went from that so that they could really get a feel for someone who's actually playing the violin. She let the children play her 250-year-old violin. It was amazing, and they loved it. Trying to entice them to go into the instrumental music piece of things. We also are doing the music appreciation. But even more importantly, I think, or equally importantly, at any rate, is that we've had someone come in to do workshops with the children. And in the workshops, they're learning about all of those technical behind-the-scenes things that go on when you're doing a performance, because we want to expand their universe and help them to know all of the different options that are out there for them. So what they've been doing is learning these technical skills, and this week, Daisy will be doing a concert on the 1st in the evening at Symphony Space to benefit orphans in Zimbabwe, believe it or not. And she will be doing a special performance earlier in that day for our children. And our children will actually be helping with the technical pieces of it. From that, we hope to be able to connect them so that they understand what's going on in Africa as she moves forward there. So we do those kinds of things with the arts. Some of
How many kids? So there will be kids who will be taking violin lessons?
Yes, yes. And we have, interestingly, some PAL kids who are teaching, former PAL kids who are teaching in a charter school, and they are donating their time to teach our children, which is just a wonderful thing. We were able to take the kids to Sphinx so that they could be in Carnegie Hall to see a performance. So again, we're trying to expand their universe beyond their environment.
Now, I know you sponsor various special events, poetry and essay contests, public speaking, showstoppers. I can imagine what that is. Tell me about showstoppers.
Yeah, we are doing a number of different programs, and you mentioned a few of them that are citywide programs where in each one of our centers, the kids are working on whether it's a production or whether it's a particular area of study, or in the case of poetry or performance like the showstoppers, and then they come together with the best of their things, and they share it with all of the PAL kids in the after-school centers. So it's a great way for them to come together and meet kids from other parts of the city and come together as one, have a sense of belonging.
And you also have summer day camps?
We do have summer day camps, and we have those again throughout the city. And
those would be at the PAL Center?
Those are at the PAL Centers. Those are beyond our play streets.
Right.
And those also have special things like Cultural Day. The kids work all summer toward Cultural Day. And last year, one of the centers did the French Revolution. And they had wigs that were made up of paper curls, and they were speaking in French, and they were pretending that one of them was the one who had designed the Eiffel Tower. They actually built an Eiffel Tower. It's just amazing to see what the children are learning. And I think that's one of the things about PAL that we can do that sometimes is difficult for schools to do, and that's that experiential learning. We can approach education in a very different way from what they can do every day in school when they're trying to meet the standards and be ready for tests and those kinds of things. In the after-school setting, in the summer setting, we're able to approach education in a very different way. So when we're doing times tables, we can have the kids actually be the times tables and be running around in the gym as part of an activity to learn those times tables, to be able to feel the things. When we're doing our STEM programming, our science, technology, and engineering programming, we can do all kinds of hands-on activities. It's easier for us to go and take the children to go and experience different things sometimes than it is for the schools to do.
Now, are these educational experiences classes, are they led by public school teachers? Who does them?
We hire people to come in, and many of them are public school teachers that we hire to come in as consultants after school to work directly with the kids. We have some certified teachers on our staff as well.
Are you constantly looking for volunteers?
Absolutely. And we're using volunteers in a number of different ways. In our juvenile justice programs, for example, so many of our children need tutoring either to get back into school or to be successful in school. And we're trying to give them that help. So many of them, you know, when you have a child, you find out that they're not going to school. It's because they're in a middle school and they're 16 years old and they're twice as big as everybody else there, and they're embarrassed. So we want to make them as successful as possible. So we will work with them to give them any of the supports that they need, whether it be in some of our programs, we have a social worker who is working with us to discover the issues. For some of the kids, it's tutoring that they need. For some of the kids, it's work skills that they need. And we have kids who are coming out of Rikers Island because, as you know, in New York, when you're 16, you're an adult. We actively go in and reach out to those kids. We don't turn kids away. We reach out to the kids who are most in need, the ones who are most apt to be in trouble, who have been in trouble, to try and turn them around or to try and give them the support so that they don't get into trouble. So we'll reach out to those kids in Rikers. We'll try and give them the job skills. We'll try and get them back into school. We'll give them internships or connect them with jobs. Right now we have 4 of them working in our headquarters, and they're doing a terrific job.
Speaking of juvenile justice, is PAL in part designed to keep young people out of the criminal justice system?
I think by virtue of the fact of the neighborhoods that our children live in, statistically, they are at a far higher risk of being involved with the justice system, not because they're bad kids, but because some of the things that are around them, the gangs that are around them, the poverty that is around them, statistics just show they're more apt. I tend to look at it as an inverse pyramid, where we're trying to take the children as young as possible with early childhood, and we're trying to keep those children and work with them straight through to adulthood and give them the supports that they need. But then, as the numbers should be getting bigger as the children get older, because we're reaching out to those children who are having more difficulty and bringing them in and giving them the supports, the positive role models around them to try and keep them out of trouble and get them through to be productive, happy adults who have occupations or college in their future.
Did I read someplace that you have daycare?
We do. We have Head Start, daycare, universal pre-K, and we serve about 875 children in those programs. And I have to tell you, we have excellent early childhood programs.
And is this for, I mean, are there income restrictions on who can take advantage of the daycare?
Well, certainly with Head Start, there are income restrictions. You have to be within 200% of the poverty line for that. For UPK and for daycare, there are not income restrictions. But again, we tend to be serving people who are in poverty just because of where we're located.
Mistrust of the police and particularly outrage over the questionable stop and frisk of usually young boys of color, is pretty strong in some neighborhoods, black neighborhoods for sure. Do you think that the PAL programs have had any impact on improving relationships with police and any impact on reducing the number of stop and frisks?
Well, certainly it does have an impact on how they view the police because they're getting to know them. It's whenever you don't know someone is when you're fearful of them, and certainly many of these children in the communities have reason for fear. They do tend to get stopped more. Again, statistics are showing us that. We just had a very interesting evening the other night, and this is something we're doing regularly with our children who are in Youth Link, and those are our children who are on probation. And what we have done, it's with Ms. Villani, Dr. Villani, and she is doing workshops between the police and our Youth Link kids to foster a better understanding of each other. And I attended one of them the other night, and it was amazing to watch and to listen when they were sharing. Many of the NYPD have come from the same neighborhoods that our kids are from. And many of them have had some of the same experiences that our kids have had. There was one boy who was talking about his anger at being stopped and being frisked, and when he was talking about it and the police would ask questions, and it was a very accepting environment. They start out with doing a little play acting, and it sort of breaks the ice. But this boy was saying, well, there were 40 of us coming from a party, and we were walking down the street, and we got stopped. And the police said, well, you know, we're concerned about gangs, and that's why we stop when there are big groups like that. And the boy was saying, well, people came into a party, and just because another boy had a gun at the party, they frisked me to see if I had a gun. And the policeman said, well, you know, the week before, we had an incident at a party where a girl was shot and killed, and we had gone in and we didn't do everything, and we came out and this girl was killed, and it's really hurting us. It's killing us that you know, we didn't stop that. So there's a lot of misunderstanding on both parts, and by getting to know each other and talk with each other, it's hoping that it'll foster a much better understanding. We can't reach everyone, but we're trying to reach as many as we can in as many ways as we can, and hopefully we will have more understanding.
And I think that's just as good a place as any to stop. I've certainly learned a lot more about the Police Athletic League than I knew before. I want to thank Alana Sweeny, Acting Executive Director of the Police Athletic League of New York City, for joining me today. If you'd like more information about the group, the program, visit the website at palnyc.org. For the City University of New York and 1-to-1, I'm Sheryl McCarthy.